Welcome to 21st Sports, and we're talking the Tennessee Titans versus the Houston Texans in their Week 4 matchup played October 2nd, 2016, as these two AFC South Division rivals went at it. And in this game, the Texans were without J.J. Watt for the first time in about 4 or 5 years. So the Texans, you wondered what would they do on defense without their star defensive player, but they came out pretty strong in this one. They jumped out to an early lead. Brock Osweiler hit C.J. Fedorowicz for a 14-yard touchdown. That made it 7-0. Then Osweiler, still in the first, hits Will Fuller for a 5-yard touchdown, and now it was 14-0 Texans over the Titans. But before the end of the first, the Titans would get on the scoreboard. Ryan Suckup with a 48-yard field goal that made it 14-3. So that was the score after 1 quarter of play. Then in the second, Nick Novak hit a 53-yard field goal. That made it 17-3. Houston's, they extended their lead. But then the Titans got into the end zone with a touchdown, a 2-yard touchdown run by DeMarco Murray. And then Murray got a second touchdown run, a 1-yard run, and that would tie the game up at 17. So Murray with a pair of touchdowns in the second quarter. But before the first half came to a close, Nick Novak hit his second field goal of the second quarter, a 45-yarder, and that gave the Houston Texans a 3-point lead at the intermission as they were up 20-17. Then in the third, Ryan Suckup hit a 26-yard field goal to tie the game up at 20 apiece. But then with less than a minute left in the third, Will Fuller with a 67-yard punt return for the score. And it was 27-20 as the Texans were back on top. So then in the fourth quarter, it was all defense. And they actually saw a play where the refs almost cost the Texans this game as they took 7 off the scoreboard. The Texans had blocked a punt and they returned it for the touchdown. But then there was a flag on the play, which ended up getting picked up. So they threw a flag saying that there was 12 men on the field for the Texans, but there wasn't 12 men on the field, so they picked the flag up and they just replayed the down. So that's, I don't know, that's pretty funky. I don't see how the refs can just make such a big mistake and then just cost the Texans 7 points on the board. Potentially, it could have cost them the game. They did hold on to win this one, but they should have had 7 more points. They should have had a 2-touchdown lead at that point. But instead, it remained 27-20. The Titans actually had a chance with less than 2 minutes left. They had a 4th and 6, but they were not able to convert. The Texans defense was able to stop them, and they were able to hold on for the score. And on the final play, the Titans trying to pull off, like a Music City Miracle like they did back in the 90s in the playoffs against the Bills. Of course, that was in Tennessee, and this was in Houston, and instead they ended up throwing the ball forward and getting a penalty on that last play. The game can end on an offensive penalty. It can end on a defensive penalty, but the game came to a close. The Texans hold on to win 27-20, and the Houston Texans sitting on top in first place. They're in the AFC South at 3-1. The Titans now fall to 1-3. Brock Osweiler in this game, 25 for 37, 254 passing yards, 2 touchdowns. He had 2 interceptions. Lamar Miller, 19 carries for 82 yards. And Will Fuller, 7 catches for 81 yards and a touchdown. He also had that punt return for the touchdown, that 67-yard punt return that ended up being the difference in this game. Marcus Mariota had 13 for 29, 202 passing yards, 0 touchdowns, 1 interception. The game's leading rusher was DeMarco Murray with 25 carries for 95 yards and 2 touchdowns. Matthews was the leading receiver in the game with 2 receptions for 82 yards for the Titans. Then we look at the defense in this game, and for the Texans, Quinn Demps with an interception, Davian Clowney with a sack. And for Tennessee, Cox and McCourty each had interceptions, and Arakpo with a sack. We look at first downs, 21-16 in favor of Houston. And then we look at the third downs, and the Titans, 7 of 15, 46%. They were 0 for 1 on fourth down. And for the Houston Texans, they were 5 for 12, 41% on third down. And they were 0 for 1 on fourth. Total net yards, 359 to 320 in favor of Houston. And then we look at the penalties in this game, and that's really what hurt Tennessee. 11 penalties, 93 penalty yards against the Titans. And for the Texans, 6 penalties, 59 penalty yards. And in the red zone, Tennessee, 2 for 3, 66%. And for Houston, they were 2 for 2, 100% in the red zone. In the time of possession, 31 minutes, 42 seconds for Tennessee, 28 minutes, 18 seconds for Houston. So the Houston Texans actually having a pretty strong defensive outing here without J.J. Watt. They're shutting down the Tennessee Titans and Marcus Mariota. Of course, they did let up almost 100 yards on the ground, but they were definitely looking pretty dominant early on in the game. And then when it counted, they shut the door and were able to keep the score, to where they ended up winning, as they did not let the Titans come back to tie it up. And really, Houston should have had another 7 at least off of that punt block for the touchdown. Instead, bad officiating knocked that 7 points off the board, but it didn't matter. Houston still won regardless. But let me know what you think in the comments section below. Definitely interested to read your thoughts and opinions. Which plays and performances stuck out to you? Thank you very much for listening. It is greatly appreciated. I hope you had a good day and had a great weekend and enjoyed all the sports.